Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I Was a Teenage Satan by MakRalston. According to the front page of the November 3rd, 1985 edition of the Blue Ridge Beacon, the devil came to Blairsville Baptist. The shocking headline alone, strengthened by the infamous satanic panic that was sweeping the then conservative Reagan era, capsulated what was ultimately an isolated incident into the plethora of anecdotal evidence that America and its Judeo-Christian foundations were being eroded and invaded by rustic devil worshippers. For some, the Blairsville Judgment House incident, as it was called, was but a drop in the bucket compared to the reported 12,000 cases of occults during its time. Others, however, persist that this sleepy town had never felt the same since. Some in this camp have even gone on to move away from the area, citing the incident as their primary motivation. Pastor Douglas Michaels, head of the Blairsville Baptist Church both then and now, is not one of those people. I mean, absolutely, it was sickening, he says from the safety behind his maple desk in his little office behind the fellowship hall. But we here in Blairsville are a resilient bunch. The Lord has been faithful to us, even despite the stumbling blocks we faced. Pastor Douglas nods with a faint smile. Despite being born and raised in, his words, the great state of Georgia peach, his accent is as about Kentucky fried as a 12-piece bucket of chicken. What about the ones who've left? Who's that? You mean that Dustin Girls folks? Among others. He nods, long and hard, then licks his chops. They were good folks, Christian folks, but I don't blame them for leaving this place. He taps his desk with his fingers like he was picking up an apple. The memories, I reckon. Do they ever haunt you too? Of course, you think it ain't pop into my head when I'm here alone at night? I mean, HE double hockey sticks, we fumigate that hall days after. But I suppose it's more than just the germs that could have lingered here. He let out a deep sigh and shivered. If I can help it, I steer clear. Nowadays, that room's mostly for the Sunday potlucks or the AA meetings anyway. But back then, it was used for the Judgment House? Right, Michael draws, his smile across his desk with closed lips until the steamy mug in his hand reaches them. It reads, World's Best Preacher, and from it, he takes a long chug. What is the Judgment House, anyway? The supposed world's best preacher places the mug atop of his maplewood desk with a dull thud. Well, technically, we weren't the first church to do this whole Judgment House thing anyway. I believe it was started in Florida, come to think of it. In a nutshell, it's kind of like one of those spooky house folks put on in their garages, only this one is more of an evangelism tool. I never got the appeal, but the kids loved it. At least, the few years we put it on, they did. And that included Stephanie Dustin? Michaels nodded. Oh yeah, he says. Stephen was one of the youth group's best leaders, in fact. Had a real connection with those kids, you know. The pastor smiles, erodes from his face, and reveals a sadly solemn expression. "Damn shame what happened," he says, shaking his head. "I suspect it wasn't for Stephanie. We would have never put on that Judgment House in the first place." "And what about Chant Lancaster?" Pastor Douglas's demeanor changes on a dime. He crosses his arms above his gut. "What about him?" "Have you seen him since the incident?" He nodded. "I've seen him twice since. First time was right after it all happened. He was in county juvenile detention or whatever you call it. And I had gone in on behalf of the church to visit, to pray with him and such. The congregation didn't like that though, especially not the Dustin girls folks." "Why not?" He let out another sigh. This time his entire pudgy body trembles. "Some of the folks back then thought he might have been, possessed." "Right." "Do you think he was?" Pastor Douglas sighed once more. "Our church's official position is that spiritual warfare can and will happen. To what extent? Well, that's the question, ain't it?" He hoarsely chuckles. "Some folks watch too many movies, I think. They see a kid limping off to their folks and think their head's gone spinning." "What did you think?" "Well, if you want to hear about demons crawling under your skin, I suggest you go down to St. Matthew's up the block. Might be a bit more sensational for your story. I'm not saying there ain't demons out there. Lord knows there's a whole spiritual plane we can't even see. But I think they work differently. They don't so much as possess as they influence." "So, do you think that Chant Lancaster was influenced?" Pastor Douglas thinks about his next words carefully and then slowly begins to nod his head. "After that first visit in the jailhouse, I think so. He didn't want to be prayed for or nothing, just wanted me to leave him alone. And his eyes." He shivered despite the office's warmth. "There was nothing in them. Just nothing." "What about the second time you saw him?" Pastor Douglas slowly swallowed to the point where his spit audibly slides down his gullet. "That second time, he wouldn't pray with me again, wouldn't even talk to me. So I prayed by myself." "What'd you pray for?" A look of guilt washed over the pastor's face. "I prayed they wouldn't let him out." Unfortunately for Pastor Douglas Michaels, the Lord did not answer his prayer. Clint Lancaster was released from the Union County Juvenile Detention Center only 3 months after the second meeting on account of good behavior, reducing his 7-month sentence by nearly half. Meanwhile, Georgie Harris, a former congregant of Blairsville Baptist and, by extension, Pastor Douglas Michaels, would serve the entirety of his 4-year prison sentence under a conviction of negligent homicide. I mean, yeah, technically Lancaster had nothing to do with it on paper. You seem to be implying something. George nods, his once long hair documented eternally in both his mugshot photograph and the one taken of the church volunteers prior to October of 1985. no longer flaps as his head bobs. Instead, a military-style buzz cut resumes its place. If you poke a sleeping bear, it wakes up and starts mauling people. Did the bear really kill him, or did you? The bear. George barks like a chicken. Whatever. I know what I did, and I know what he did. Which is? George sighed and rubbed his hands through his thinning hair. He set me up. And how exactly did he do that? George glares up at me with a furrowed brows and an incredulous grin. You on his side or something? He asked. Just plain devil's advocate, so to speak. George replies. Figures. Media's had their bias since the get-go. Oh, what do you mean? George looks at me satirically. I mean, like them failing to report all the weird shit he did right before it happened. Such as? George puffs out a breath. It reeks of cheap beer. Him going out in the woods at night, parking his car outside her house. We were practically going steady at that point until I thought she might have been cheating on me with Sweaty Chetty. Why did you call him that? Lancaster? Have you seen that guy? He's been sweating since he was born. He chuckles grimly to himself. Guess that's how he got out of the womb. Slippery son of a bitch. Yet you were in a love triangle with him and Stephanie? George lets out a crackle and slaps the kitchen table with his palm. Love triangle? He repeats, mocking my tone. The only love triangle Lancaster was ever part of was between him, his mama, and God. And I bet God dropped out long before the incident. He'd be lucky if he was in a love line. So why suspect then steady girlfriend was cheating if he wasn't a threat? 'Cause that's what women do, man, George says. His smile disappeared at this point. It's their favorite game to play. What is? George sighs and wipes his face. From calling Chat Lancaster sweaty, he sure is drenched in a perspiration of his own. Stephen and I were going through a bit of a rough patch. Thought you were going steady, I interjected. We were, he corrects me, until Bobby Owen's homecoming party. Then ever since we were on the rocks, and not in the fun way. What happened at the party? He sighed and rubbed his hands again through his non-existent hair. Typical relationship bullshit. There's a smile spraying on his face for a brief second before it disappeared just as quickly as it came. I had been talking to one of those girls in our class, okay? Hell, I don't even remember her name, that's how forgettable she was. What I do remember was that she was our teacher's pet, got straight A's and everything. The whole 9 yards. That's why I was talking to her that night. We weren't flirting, he laughs nervously. I was trying not to fail geography. I don't know, math? Geometry? Whatever, Steph swore up and down I was cheating on her, and all the convincing in the world wouldn't change her mind. That's who Steph was, you see. Headstrong, just like her mother. His eyes darted up and to the left and then settled back onto me. I even showed her the grades I got on the test about the triangles. A C+, he emphasized. I ain't never got a C+ on a math test. Did she buy it? George's face dropped at the sound of my question. Did she believe me? He rasped. When Sweaty Chatty started coming round after the party, I knew her answer. She didn't. George shakes his head affirmatively. I think she was trying to make me jealous. And did she? Again, George swings his head. It's a game, man. That's why Lancaster was invited to be part of the Judgment House that year. That's why I got so pissed off, and that's when you slashed her tires. The man before me catches his breath in midair. Somewhere behind him, a wall clock ticks impatiently. He nods feverishly. But I didn't think she'd fucking ride on him, for Christ's sake. But she did, I replied. He agrees with a silent series of nods, much like Pastor Douglas Michaels. I hear him swallow audibly. Woman drivers, am I right? He grins painfully at me. I don't smile back. Donna Dustin, on the other hand, smiles brightly. In fact, her face seemingly beams the warmth lamplight of her cozy living room. Through the blinds, there is a similarly shaded glow of orange-yellow as the sun sets on the sleepy neighborhood of Ducktown, Tennessee. Blairsville and its Baptist church of the same name reside some 30 miles southeast on the opposite side of the state line. Despite the busy bustling of the neighborhood just beyond the blinded windows behind her, Donna Dustin's porch light is not lit, and no candy awaits the dozens of trick-or-treaters scurrying around in the night. Halloween night. I made a gesture towards the window beyond it. You don't celebrate anymore? Donna's smile remains. Never did, sweetie. Then what about the Judgment House? Donna sighs and looks around the room for an answer. Instead of orange and black decorations and the occasional smiling-faced pumpkin, the walls are scattered with wooden crosses and family photographs, some of which feature her late daughter, Stephanie Dustin. These photos are much older than the rest. The Judgment House was Stephanie's idea, Donna explains. Her father and I never wanted her to go to those, as they called them, haunted houses. But we knew Stephanie's friends always went without her. Then we started attending Blairsville and heard about the whole Judgment House thing. My then husband supposed it was a fair compromise. She got to dress up and, well, do whatever they do on this night. But it be under the supervision of the church and Pastor Doug. You know, some people say this night is a Christian one, All Hallows Eve. Donna nods as if she had expected such a response. She had probably gotten it before. That's because the church tried its best to cover up its true origins. Just like Christmas, even Easter. Halloween is a pagan night, make no mistake. You're talking about Samhain, I say, and Donna agrees. I'm surprised she had heard the word before. Like you, I too do my research, Donna says with a single nod. Even in the dim lighting, I notice now that her face is all dolled up with bright red lipstick and rose red blush. Perhaps she expected an interview captured on camera. Or maybe she simply was as old-fashioned as her ideas. I'm about to ask a follow-up question when Donna cuts me off. All I'll say is that if tonight is a holy, she air quotes, of nights, as I've come to believe, I have no doubt Mr. Lancaster will be in full celebration. Her statement is a perfect segue. So you think Clint Lancaster is a devil worshipper? Donna squawks out an ironic chuckle. I know he is, she clarifies. You think any God-fearing person would have done what he did? Sure, Georgie Harris slashed the tires, but that boy was angry and seeing red. A hot temper shows great foolishness, you know. That's a proverb. Yes, it was a horrible accident, but I've forgiven him. What about Clint Lancaster? Donna thinks beneath her makeup, her face wrinkles. As best as I humanly can, I've forgiven him, yes. You have to keep in mind, that display haunts me. I see it in my dreams, my nightmares. You're referring to the Judgment House? What Clint Lancaster did to it? Yes, she answers. What he did with her? All under the guise of that awful mask. The devil mask? Donna nods apprehensively. She then takes a long glance at the photograph of Stephanie on the wall. He really got into that role, Stephanie told me. When was this? A few weeks before the accident, Donna explained. When they were doing rehearsals. They rehearsed the Judgment House? Oh, sure, Donna nods. It required a lot of acting, apparently. None we weren't used to in our household, though. Stephanie was a regular thespian. Quite good, too. At this point, Donna tears up. Some of her eyes fade to red. Shame she couldn't follow her dreams, you know. Donna excuses herself and then clears her throat. She continues in a shakier tone. From what I saw, she was playing one of the sinners, the people that go to hell when they die. She had gotten Clint to play the devil. I guess the boy was socially awkward and wanted to be the part of it. Apparently he was a thespian too. Real method actor, though. How so? Donna smiles a bit, then it completely vanishes. Stephanie told me that he had been part of their Easter production that spring. I guess he had played one of the Jesuses. They had a couple of different scenes and had fasted for weeks before the show, starved himself more or less, from what Stephanie said. Why's that? Donna shrugs. To get into character, I guess. Years before he did the same thing. For that production, I think it was a church version of A Christmas Carol. He was nothing but an extra. A week before the show started, he broke his leg, but insisted to be in it. I squinted at her questioningly. She continues. He had been cast as one of those poor people on the street, a crippled with one of those crutches like Tiny Tim, you know. Her eyes widened at this point. Stephanie said there was a rumor going around he broke his leg himself just to walk with a hobble. Tiny Tim didn't have a broken leg. He was ill. And so is Clint Lancaster, she exclaims. But not just sick in the head, she says, pressing a red nail fingertip into her temple, but ill in spirit. The man needs Jesus. So, do you think he's possessed? Donna takes an exacerbated breath. I don't see how he couldn't be. I mean, he desecrated the grave. The church stalked my daughter, used her body like that. And I know Georgie must have told you about how he saw him going out into the woods all by his lonesome. I know the kind of witchcraft they do there in the Appalachians. So yeah, he's possessed all right. Or at least he was. I nod. Pastor Michaels didn't think so. No? She asks, her brows furrow. He said Lancaster was influenced, but not possessed. Donna's face expanded from its narrow, curious gaze. Now it became fuller and sadder. I could believe that, she says, her tone indicating that, for her, the issue was resolved, and her follow-up question suggested as much. When did you interview with the pastor? 2 days ago. Donna nods agreeably. And what about Georgie? Yesterday. Oh, Lord Jesus, she gasped. You must have just missed it. Missed what? The fire, Donna explains, happened last night. I know only because I keep in touch with the Harrises and got the call this morning. They didn't tell you? Tell me what? Donna sighs and braced herself. George is dead, she said, holding tears back. They found his body all burnt up in his house. What was left of it anyway. What time was that when they found him? About 9:30 last night, she says. Jesus. Yes, Mary Jesus be with his soul, amen. So, where do you think he is now? Donna is caught off guard by my question. Where is he? She asked for clarity. I nodded. Well, I suppose his folks are arranging the funeral. If he's not in the casket by now, I bet they got him down at the city morgue. I watched her shudder at the thought as though she was reliving an old, haunting memory. Do you think he's in hell? Her eyes bulge. Goodness, no, she explains. What kind of question is that? He's responsible for your daughter's death. My daughter's death was an accident, she says firmly. I know Georgie was upset with her, that much is obvious, but he never wanted to hurt her, much less... Her voice trails off. Kill her? She nods without looking at me. What wasn't an accident was what Clint Lancaster did. Which was... The beam from Donna's face is gone now. Don't you already know? Humor me. She takes a long breath and her face reddens. He dug up my daughter and brought her body to the church, our church. Donna let out a heavy breath. There, are you happy? What did he do with her? Donna's voice trembles. It wasn't her anymore, she clarifies. It was just a body, a husk. Well, what did he do with her body then? Like the others, I hear a gob of spit glide down Donna's throat. You know damn well what he did. I want to hear it from you. Well, I don't want to talk about it, she says, shaking her head passionately. Tears begin to stream down her cheeks. I know he hung her up in the hell room, right? Covered her up in plastic Halloween chains, red strobe lights. Yes, I know what he did, she explains, cutting me off. I'll never forget it from as long as I live. Her body all mangled up as it was. The mobbers did what they could, but the accident left her all. She shakes her head. And of course I had to be the one to identify her, seeing her like that. I nod. Do you think she's still there? Dawn looks up at me with tear-filled eyes that shake as she speaks. Still where? In hell. Donna gasps in disgust. Why on earth would you ask me that? She shakes her head furiously. What paper are you even with anyway? Who said I was with the paper? You said you wanted. She started to say, but then stopped cold in her tracks. Again, I hear her swallow. Let me ask you again, Mrs. Dustin. Do you think your daughter Stephanie's in hell right now? The next breath that escapes her comes from Donna's nose alone. I think you should leave, sir. I think I'll leave you the way I left Pastor Michael's. How's that? I shrug. They'll find out tomorrow morning. He's still in his office, I bet. Shame they'll have to fumigate the place again. Hot breath from Donna's nose fills the cold air between us. And Georgie? She asks. I'm guessing you killed him too? You call it killed. What would you call it? I think about her question carefully, supposing it might be the last one she ever asks. Earlier you brought up Halloween. You said you did your research. You remember that? Donna nods carefully. A look of realization is plastered across her face. Then you might remember the bonfires, the sacrifices. Witchcraft. Donna hushes. I nodded. I mean, Clit said Georgie would burn fast and bright. And boy, did he. So, Donna choked out. Jint sent you? I nodded again. Why not all do this himself then? And why now? I guess you could say the stars have aligned, I tell her. They've aligned for us, for Chint. That's why he couldn't be here, to see you face to face. He is busy preparing. For what? Tonight. I hear Donna actively holding her breath. He wanted me to assure you that none of this was personal, all just part of the plan. Whose plan? Donna asks. I'm about to answer, but she answers herself. I know whose plan. Donna sighs, but before she can catch her breath, I stand from the couch across the living room, no longer cozy. All this over a judgment house? She asks frantically, as if pushing out the words. I couldn't help but grin and remove the dagger Chin had given me from my coat pocket. This is the judgment house. I felt immense guilt when I accidentally dropped my wife's pumpkin that she carved in honor of our toddler who went missing recently. The guilt faded away when my toddler's head rolled out. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. First of all, if you have a story you'd like me to narrate, I have down in the description box 3 different ways that you can send it my way. Second of all, I'd like to thank my Patreons and members. Thank you guys so much for your support. As always, I appreciate it. And last but never least, I'd like to thank the writers who let me read their stories this evening. I truly enjoyed this Halloween story. I didn't really know where it was going till the very end. I definitely was on the edge of my seat as I was reading it, trying to figure out exactly where this interview was going. And the only thing I didn't like was the jarringness between the different characters. It made it harder for me to get my head around what was going on, but I did try to put in different music to help with that, as well as I did change the photo to help you guys see that it was a different character that the main character was talking to. So I hope that did help you guys. I actually did find this one on the wiki for creepypastas as well, and I really love reading stories from there. You can find some really, really good ones. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, I hope you will subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And of course, I would love a comment. Tell me what you thought of the story or what kind of stories you like in the future. If you're listening to the podcast instead and are able to, please leave a review. And if you're on Spotify, you can also leave a comment. And of course, no matter where you're listening, if you're willing to share these stories with anyone else who might enjoy it, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps quite a bit. If you would like to help in a more financial way, I do have Patreon and memberships where you get early access as well as a few other bonuses. If you'd like to do a tip instead and just like a one-time thing, I do have PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and Super Thanks on YouTube. But as always, guys, having you watching and listening always will mean the world to me. I really love finding stories to narrate and bring to life for you. I actually hope you really enjoyed the accents. I did try to change the southern accents a little. And, of course, happy Halloween. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite or steal all your candy.